Good morning. Welcome to week 2 of Forensic Ballistics. Today we are going to trace the origin and history of firearms and enumerate and describe the general classification of firearms. Let us start with firearms identification. In its narrowest meaning, it is the science by which one can determine whether or not a particular bullet was fired from a particular gun. In its broadest definition, it is a knowledge with which one is enabled to reveal any pertinent facts about firearms or ammunition which assist the investigation of a crime. In its discipline of forensic science, it has as its primary concern the examination of bullets, cartridge cases, and other ammunition components to determine if they were fired from a specific firearm. The origin and development of firearms followed the invention of gunpowder in Western Europe in the 13th century. One of the earliest recorded uses of firearms in warfare was an attack in Seville, Spain in 1247. So, digmaan. History also showed that cannons were used by King Edward III of England in Crecy in 1346. Mohammed II of Turkey, in his famous conquest of Constantinople in 1453, used cannons. It was in 1350 when a portable arm which could be operated by a single person appeared. So we have here an image of a cannon. Cannon is a large, heavy piece of artillery, typically mounted on wheels. So this is formerly used in warfare. So ito po yung cannon. It is mounted on wheels. It launches a projectile using explosive chemical propellant. Gunpowder was the primary propellant before the invention of smokeless powder during the late 19th century. Let us move on to the stages of development of man's weapon. So how did our ancestors defend themselves from the attack of animals and their uh, enemy during that time? So first we have the use of stones. Okay? And then comes the use of clubs, yung pamalo. So this is a thick wood. Then they were able to discover the use of knives and spears and darts followed. Okay? Pana. Pana, unana ti Ilocano data. And then, we have the slingshot. So, ito yung naabutan ninyo, no? And then, we have the bows and arrows. And then, the emergence of guns and missiles. Then, let us move on knowing and defining the nature of firearm. Firearm basically is termed as a gun. It is an instrument used for the propulsion of projectiles by means of the expansive force of gases coming from burning gunpowder. Technically, It is a weapon consisting essentially of a metal tube that fires a projectile by using the force of an explosive propellant. In its legal definition, firearms or arms include rifles, muskets, carbines, shotguns, pistols, revolvers, and all other deadly weapons, from which bullets, balls, shots, shells, or other missiles may be discharged by means of gunpowder or other explosive. The term also includes air rifle, except those that are small in caliber and usually used as toys. The barrel of any firearm is considered a complete firearm for all purposes thereof. Next, we have the history of the first firearm. The first firearms that developed were small arms in the form of miniature artillery weapons and were at first called hand cannons. So, these are the classification. The hand cannon seems to have appeared about 1350 and consisted of a simple iron tube with a stock. The tube had a hole at the rear end, which is called the touch hole, and a little extension or pan to hold a small amount of powder known as priming charge. Then we have the matchlock arms. It appeared about 1485. These were simple improvement of the hand cannon. They utilized a lever, spring, and trigger to hold the burning match and bring it in contact with the powder in the pan when firing the gun. Then we have the wheel lock, developed about 1500. Wheel lock is a mechanism for firing a firearm. It was the next major development in firearms technology after the matchlock. Wheel lock is considered as the first self-igniting firearm. Next, we have the flintlock arms. It was introduced about 1630. The flintlock rapidly replaced earlier firearm ignition technologies such as the matchlock and wheel lock mechanisms. It continued to be in common use for over 2 centuries, replaced by percussion cap and later cartridge-based systems in the early to mid-19th century. Then we have the percussion muzzle loading rifle pattern. In 1807, the Scots minister, the Reverend Alexander John Forsyth, patented a chemical compound consisting mainly of mercury fulminate, which would explode on being struck. Percussion firing requires the use of an explosive that will detonate when struck a sharp blow. We have two groups of firearms. First, we have the long arms or shoulder arms, and we have its kind. First is the rifle. This is a type of weapon normally designed to be fired with the support of the shoulder. Okay? So, meron po kayong image dyan. The name rifle was based of the grooving inside the barrel, which is known as the rifling. Then we have the musket. This is a long, smooth-bored firearm that is designed to fire a single round lead ball, muzzle-loading firearms. And then steel from steel under long arms or shoulder arms, we have the shotgun. It is a long, smooth-bore firearms having a barrel of 25 to 30 inches long and designed to shoot a number of lead pellets in one charge. Then the second group of firearms, we have the handgun or shot arms. It is a firearm designed to be held in the hand when used. So ito po yung nahahawakan. Kayang iputok ng isang kamay lamang. Kaya tinawag siyang handgun. No? Portable handguns appeared only in the early years of 16th century. So we have here the kinds of handgun or short arms. Semi-automatic pistol. This is a repeating firearm requiring a separate pull of the trigger for each shot fired. It is a handgun whose chamber is integral with the barrel. A handgun that is magazine fed. Then you have the revolver, a firearm with a cylinder having several chambers so arranged as to rotate. Okay? So habang ipinuputok mo, umiikot po siya. So arranged as to rotate around an axis and be discharged successively by the same firing mechanism. We have here the types of revolver according to operation. We have the single action revolvers. It requires manual cocking of the hammer before sufficient force on the trigger releases the firing mechanism. Pulling the trigger releases the hammer, driving the firing pin to detonate the cartridge. Then we have the double action revolvers. These are similar to single action revolvers with the following exceptions. It is called double action because the trigger performs two actions. The trigger cocks the hammer and it releases the hammer. Then let us move to firearm nomenclatures. We have here the parts of pistol. We have the slide, breech space, barrel, ejector, extractor, firing pin aperture, trigger, safety pin, ejection port, and the trigger guard. And then we have the parts of a revolver. We have the cylinder, trigger, hammer, barrel, breech space, firing pin, and the slide plate screw. I believe that you already had your fundamentals of marksmanship, no? Wherein these topics are already discussed. And I believe that you have already an idea and have seen, and even the demonstration was already given. We have the three main parts of revolver and pistol. For the revolver caliber 38, we have the barrel assembly, cylinder assembly, in the frame or receiver. On the pistol caliber 45, we have the barrel assembly, the slide assembly, in the frame or receiver. The automatic pistol, besides having the main parts and detailed parts, it has also the so-called auxiliary parts or accessories, which must all be removed first before this assembly of the weapon can be accomplished. So yung mga pwedeng maalis, barrel bushing, slide stop pin, recoil spring, recoil spring guide, and recoil lug. So these are the accessories that first be removed before disassembly of the weapon. We have here the general classification of firearms. First, according to gun barrel internal construction. So we have here the smooth bore firearms, firearms that have no rifling. So wala po kayong makikitang rifling. Ayan, kaya tinawag na smooth bore firearms. And then dito sa rifle bore firearms, ito po yung firearms that have rifling inside the gun. So ito po yung rifling, ang mga iyan. At saka po ang mga iyan. Okay? And then classification of firearms according to caliber o projectiles propelled. Yung naipropel sa particular firearm. We have the artillery, those type of firearms that propel projectiles 1 inch and more in diameter. So, ang example nito, cannons, mortars, and bazookas. Okay? Yun po yung mga naipropel na projectiles. And then for small arms, those type of firearms that propel projectiles less than 1 inch in diameter. So ang mga firearms na gumagamit nito, we have machine guns, shoulder arms, and handguns. So ito po yung mga ginagamit na projectiles. And then according to mechanical construction, we have single-shot firearm, type of firearm designed to only one shot for every loading. So example, we have single-shot pistol, rifle, and shotgun. You have there the image. Then you have the repeating firearm, which fires several shots in one loading. Okay? Tuloy-tuloy yan. A rifle that have a number of cartridges stored in some form of magazine. So example, we have automatic pistols, rifles, revolvers, and shotguns. And then we have the type of firearms. We have the third, automatic loading type. So, after the first shot is fired, automatic loading or feeding of the chamber takes place. Those that discharge one cartridge with each pull of the trigger and that continue to fire as long as the trigger is held back. So, ang example niyan is rifles, machine guns, and you have there the image. And then we have bolt action type, wherein reloading is done by manipulation of the bolt. So we have the bolt action rifle, a firearm that is manually loaded by the reciprocation and engagement of a bolt. And then we have the lever action, a design wherein the breech mechanism is cycled by an external lever, generally below the receiver. And then we have the machine type, a firearm with a rifle barrel, firing rifle ammunition, and capable of fully automatic fire. This is a weapon which shoots or designed to shoot automatically or semi-automatically more than one shoot without manual reloading. And then we have the shotguns. The shotguns, from the standpoint of operation, shotgun mechanisms parallel those of rifles. The major difference between the two types of guns is the barrel. It is a smooth-bore firearm and it has no rifling grooves cut into the barrel. So ito po yung nature ng shotgun. So this shotgun, machine type, lever action, automatic loading type, and single shot firearm are classifications of firearm according to mechanical construction. Then we have also classification of firearms as to power pursuant to Republic Act 8294. So this is a law that pertains to the possession and use of firearms. So we have the low-powered firearms. It includes rimfire handguns, .380 or .32, and other firearm of similar firepower. And then we have the high-powered firearms that includes those with bores bigger in diameter than .38 caliber and 9 mm, such as caliber .40, .41, .44, .45, and also lesser caliber firearms, but consider powerful firearms such as caliber .357 and caliber .22 center fire magnum, and other firearms with fire magnum and other firearms with firing capability of full automatic and by burst of 2 or 3. So this ends our slide. For your activities, so I repeat, your activities is located at the last part of your module. And for today's lesson, I give for your activity 1, drawing and labeling. So draw and label the parts of M16 Armalite rifle and caliber 45 pistol. I want you to draw this in a bond paper using a pencil. And for your activity 2, which you are going to answer in a yellow pad paper, you have there multiple choices. So this is all for today, and thank you for joining me. Let us again meet for the next lesson.